What if everything we thought we knew about flat Earth was only a fraction of the truth? 1/4 of the truth, to be exact. First, have you seen the moon map projection where they take the moon and map out the dark spots on it, and they'll show that 1/4 is our known Earth, our known flat Earth model. Now, we've all seen the clock in Prague, but I want to point something out. You notice the constellation ring here, and the sun and the moon are actually connected right here in the center, showing that the sun and moon go around this constellation wheel. And some say that this constellation wheel might slowly but surely, over maybe thousands of years, move around this bigger circle. Now here's where it gets really interesting. If that's the case, and the sun's trajectory is warming this land, but then also moving through 4/4, right? Then that would mean that this area of ice would be melting and the rest would be freezing. So when I ask Google where Antarctica's ice caps are melting, it's the western area of Antarctica. When I ask where they are constantly freezing, they said the eastern region. Where is the eastern region? Everywhere else in Antarctica. Believe it or not, this is how Antarctica is divided. So where is this western region on the flat Earth map? Well, let's just say if this were moving around in a circle, this little part would be the one melting and the rest would be freezing. So then I was looking at the Mercator map, and none of these regions look familiar, but it is weird how they all are in 4/4. A clock is sectioned in 4/4. Several cosmological and mythological systems portray 4 corners or 4/4. In the book of Enoch, he talks about the 4/4. And several verses talk about the 4/4. Then you look at the definition of quarter, and one is each 4 equal or corresponding parts into which something is or can be divided, right? Then another definition is the place in which you can dwell, a specific place. Here's what's nuts though. So this is a quarter, as in one.
Hey, you. You still think Antarctica is a continent at the bottom of a globe? You haven't figured it out? It's an ice wall yet? Well, stick around. If you watch this whole thing, you might just figure it out. Let's first take a walk down memory lane back to 1957 when the Navy went to Antarctica, and what did they find? A never-ending, and I mean never-ending ice wall. And I fast forward this thing here so you can just get an idea of it, but they're panning and panning and panning and flying a helicopter and panning, and they never get to the end because it is an ice wall that surrounds all the known lands. Like I said, never ending. Just keeps going. That's all it. See, these old maps used to show it. This is called the Hammond map from 1933, and you can research this yourself. And look, this is Antarctica down here, okay? They're not showing Antarctica as a continent at the bottom. They're showing Antarctica as an ice wall that surrounds us. This isn't the outline of a map. That's the outline of Antarctica. See, this is what NASA tells us Antarctica looks like. And to me, this looks like it could easily be CGI or something a kindergartner drew. And if you ever go on Google Maps or anything and try to do distances on this, it goes all haywire. You know why? Because Antarctica is an ice wall. And I don't claim to know what's outside of the ice wall. Maybe there is more land. I do believe there's a dome above us, and I think there's good evidence to support that. But I don't know. I don't know what's out here. It's all speculation. I think that this stuff there could be bigger and bigger domes. But like I said, it's all speculation. I think there even could be something like this, and I'm not saying with the eyeball, but just, maybe our life and our dome and our ice wall is here, but then there are other ones outside. I even don't think that goes against the Bible and the teachings of Jesus and God, because maybe that Bible It's just for our little world here, and there's other things that God created, and by the time he got to us, he wanted to do it right, and so he made us in his image. But even though I'm not sure about this, what I am pretty sure of, I do think there is a barrier, and I think there is some fluid above that barrier. And I don't think that's speculation. I think there's good evidence of that I'm going to show you. Like I said, I think there is some actual evidence that above our enclosed system is some sort of fluid. Maybe a superfluid, maybe it's just regular water. But this is called the lunar wave, and it's been captured dozens of times. And I think this, plus what I'm going to show you next with stars, is pretty good evidence that it's not infinite space above us, but some sort of fluid. So again, this is what a star looks like if you've never seen it, but it looks an awful lot like a pool light in water. Like I said, some evidence to support there's water above us. You guys, I really think it's about time you trade this in for that. And if you like this ice wall hat, find it at fittestflatearther.com.
The moon is a plasma phenomenon and happens in the ethereal field above. The moon is the mirror of Earth. This is why we always see the same face on the moon. It is the face of the Earth in real time. We have to flip the moon mirror and to see the map of the Earth in this transition. Water masses and energy spots give fluorescence on the ethereal field above, but land masses do not. The Sun is a focused plasma phenomenon of positive energy and the Moon of negative energy. Their shapes are like lenses and they have the same size. Their altitude is around 5,000 kilometers and the diameter is 55 kilometers. We live in the bigger Earth plane with hidden continents. With some a good climate of living and others not. Climate conditions are changing due to the motion of the magnetic north, and while shifting it takes along the climate zones. The moon phases changes on the constellation of the Sun and Moon, and the two equal each other out. Planets are ethereal torus fields, one inside the other. Every field gives an imprint above just like the Sun and Moon. Stars are reflections of the great depths and energy spots on Earth above, on the ethereal ceiling of our low-frequency material torus field. The Moon's rotation serves as a compass looking at the Moon in all its phases using the axes of the phases.
The perennial philosophy of the doctrine of creation states that when examining the natural world, one should assume stable form and function, and that wherever there is design, there must be a designer. Welcome to Cylindrical Physics Volume 1, an exercise in visual pattern recognition. Empiricism, a method of inquiry by which a postulation can be verified or disproved by direct evidence, measurement, or experiment. Core axioms. All maps are scale models of reality. Latitude and longitude are points on an Earth map projection that help you find a specific location. The scale of a map is the ratio used to correct the distance on the map projection to the corresponding distance on the ground. We now have empirical evidence of the true Earth map. The following is a series of Earth map projections. As a general rule, the horizontal red lines are latitude and the vertical red lines are longitude. As these lines intersect, they create bounded areas. The bounded areas of each projection cover the same area of Earth as the corresponding bounded areas on the other projections. The shapes of the bounded areas influence the shape of the continents contained therein. Despite the subtle differences, these are the same land masses. Here are several different projections of Africa. Notice the shape of the continent and the angles on the coastline changes. This is because of the coordinate system. When the bounded area is largely composed of wide rectangles, Africa becomes squat and wide. When the bounded area is largely composed of tall, thin rectangles, Africa becomes tall and thin. When the bounded areas containing Western Africa are thinner than the ones containing Central and Eastern Africa, Western Africa becomes noticeably more stout. The same thing happens with the other continents. The eastern edge of South America can be either pointed or flat, depending on the coordinate system. On the left is a cylindrical coordinate system, where the top line is the North Pole and the bottom line is the South Pole. Cylindrical map projections are the ones most people are most familiar with. On the right is a polar coordinate system, where the center point is the North Pole and the outermost circle is the South Pole. We can convert between coordinate systems. The top line in the cylindrical coordinate system becomes the central point in the polar coordinate system. The bottom line in the cylindrical coordinate system becomes the outermost circle in the polar coordinate system. The conversion also works in reverse. These conversions are easy to do in any image manipulation program, such as Photoshop or GIMP. If the geographic center, which is represented by the red dot, of the coordinate system is misaligned from the magnetic center, which is represented by the collapse point of the concentric latitudes, a waveform will be introduced in the conversion. This is analogous to the disparity between the magnetic and geographic north poles on Earth. In this coordinate system, the geographic center is different from the magnetic center of the coordinate system. Notice the waveform and the latitudes of the converted cylindrical projection. Even in the more exotic coordinate systems, the bounded areas cover the same areas of Earth. Equivalence between coordinate systems is verifiable by manipulating the bounded areas into the same shape. In order to convert A into B, we will first convert the polar coordinate system A into cylindrical coordinate system A', and we will convert polar coordinate system B into cylindrical coordinate system B'. B' has squares for every bounded area. Therefore, the bounded areas of A' must all be converted into squares. Upon converting the irregular bounded areas of A' into the regular squares of A', equivalence between A double prime and B prime has been verified. Notably, the Americas have increased in size. Africa has shrunk slightly. South America and Australia have moved to the right, and Europe has moved to the left, all in accordance with straightening the zigzagging longitudes. Converting A double prime back to polar verifies equivalence between the original polar projection B as well. Even the largest ground-based objects, such as mountains and skyscrapers, shrink and fade to obscurity at distances of several dozen miles. In fact, only 2 objects are visible from every location on the surface of the Earth: the Sun and the Moon. The Sun is a source, a locus, if you will, of blinding light, more or less devoid of discernible features. The Moon, on the other hand, not only possesses discernible features, those features are its defining characteristic. The other defining characteristic of the Moon is its phases: new to waxing to full to waning and back to new. An eternal cycle. This introductory episode will focus exclusively on the first quarter moon phase, better known as the waxing half moon. I must stress, this is not an arbitrary half moon, but the half moon is defined in observable reality by the shadow terminator line. Take note of the discernible features of the waxing half moon. An interesting thing happens if you mirror the moon and focus on the waxing half. Let's apply an unsharp mask filter to make the darks slightly darker and the lights slightly lighter. Finally, we'll apply a coordinate system. Let's revisit the off-center polar to cylindrical conversion to convert our polar moon image into a cylindrical one. Apply continental boundaries. Apply coordinate system. Color the land green and the water blue. Let's deconstruct this and examine it in more detail. Let's begin with an unmanipulated moon image. Let's ensure the accuracy of the continental outlines. Let's address the anomalies which are present in the moon image, but left out of the outline. Every one of these anomalies are present in relief maps of the Earth, which show the elevated lands underwater. Let's look at East Asia. China, Korea, Japan, Yellow Sea area. Separating the light from the dark reveals the shape of the land underneath. And Japan and Korea become instantly recognizable and at the appropriate latitude and longitude. South of Japan are several long arms of land clearly visible on the moon and on relief maps. South and east of this area, between Australia and the Americas, is the largest anomaly on the map. Relief maps show us this is Eastern Oceania, that is Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia. Over 10,000 islands scattered across tens of millions of square miles of ocean. East of South America, off the southern coast of Brazil, is the Rio Grande Plateau, or the Rio Grande Rise, clearly visible on relief maps. 120 to 270 miles west of the coast of India's southwestern Malabar coast lie the Lakshadweep Islands, clearly visible on relief maps. 450 miles south of this, along the Chagos Laccadive Ridge, are the Maldives. East of this is the 90 East Ridge, which, unsurprisingly, rides the 90 east longitude. Off the western coast of northern Namibia in Africa lies the Walvis Ridge. Between South Africa and Madagascar is the Mozambique Ridge. In conclusion, not only are all continents visible on the moon and consistent with stated latitude and longitude, all major ocean ridges on world relief maps are present and consistent as well. Only 2 objects are visible from every location on the surface of the Earth, and the only one with discernible features bears every location on the surface of the Earth as those discernible features. This is not a coincidence. The next episode will cover the magnetodielectric field as an electric circuit and deal with how and why a plasma projection of a geographic terrain through a magnetic field will bear distortions due to the presence of that magnetic field. Welcome to Selenetical Physics, Volume 2, Reflections on the Electric Field. Having established that the only object with discernible features visible from every location on the surface of the Earth bears every location on the surface of the Earth as those discernible features, we'll now assemble the building blocks as to how the larger scale structure of our physical realm correlates with the moon projection, beginning with a primer on the electric field. A wave is not what something is. A wave is what something does. In the simplest terms, a wave is a motion or an oscillation of a material. In a transverse wave, the material is oscillating perpendicular to the direction of wave propagation, creating crests and troughs. In a longitudinal wave, the material is oscillating parallel to the direction of wave propagation, creating compressions, which are areas of increased density, and rarefactions, which are areas of decreased density. A sound wave is an example of a longitudinal wave. Electric fields are ubiquitous and practically synonymous with life, being present in all environments, as well as all biological organisms and many everyday man-made items. The electric field is an energy circuit, a union comprised of 2 essential components always, the magnetic field and the dielectric field. These are cross-sections of the electric fields of a single conductor in a system of conductors. The conductors are the black holes in the images, which act as poles of the circuit. In the single conductor, the poles are focused on the center, with one pole being behind the other. This is similar to the polar projection in Volume 1 of this series, where the North Pole is the center and the South Pole is the outer ring. In the system of conductors, both poles are represented by black holes. The circles propagating outward from the conductors are the magnetic field. In the single conductor, the circles are concentric. In the system of conductors, the circles are eccentric. The radial dotted lines are the dielectric field. The relation between the magnetic and the dielectric is the magnetic is parallel to the conductor and the dielectric is perpendicular to the conducting surface. This also means that lines of magnetic and dielectric inductive force are orthogonal or perpendicular to one another at all points. Lines of magnetic force close on themselves. They are divergent, expansive, and create space. Lines of dielectric force terminate on conductors. They are convergent, contractive, and collapse to counter space, becoming magnetism. An aid to understanding the concept of counter space is the eye of a hurricane. In the context of a hurricane, at this point of serenity in the center, around which the torrential storm rages, there is no hurricane. This zone of nothing that the vortex of the hurricane is focused around is counter space. Here, the cross-section of the electric field of a system of conductors is compared to a photograph of a magnet under a ferrocell. We can see the poles of the magnet are equivalent to the conductors. The shape of the magnetic field lines are clearly visible. What is commonly referred to as magnetism is actually the dielectric field. Magnetic and dielectric fields have the ability to shape and even contain plasma phenomena. When comparing the cross-section of an electrical circuit to the coordinate system on the moon, latitude is the magnetic field component of the electrical circuit. Longitude is the dielectric field component of the electrical circuit. The direction of material motion on Earth is best described as a westward circle. This is the direction the sun, moon, and other celestial etheric bodies travel in our sky. A wave propagating parallel to this circular westward motion is a longitudinal wave. A wave propagating perpendicular to this circular westward motion is a transverse wave. The lines of longitude, unsurprisingly, form a longitudinal wave with a compression just east of the anti-meridian and a rarefaction just west of the prime meridian. These zones are also the maximum and minimum in the transverse interference pattern formed by the latitude. This means the Atlantic Ocean is expanded both laterally and longitudinally, while the Pacific Ocean is compressed both laterally and longitudinally. Similar to the electric circuit, where the dielectric field lines represent what is commonly referred to as magnetism, on the moon projection, the longitude lines represent what is commonly referred to as Earth's magnetic field. The transverse motion of electrical energy is represented by a field of eccentric circles rather than concentric circles. Energy is conveyed longitudinally, that is radially, from the primary pole to the secondary pole. The primary pole is north. Clearly demarcated is the collapse point of the eccentric circles of latitude and the radial intersection of the lines of longitude. Therefore, the secondary pole should be at the radial intersection at the other end of the longitudinal compression. It should at this point be noted that the longitudinal compression area corresponds directly to the deepest parts of the known ocean. The 7 deepest parts of the known oceans are in this area of the anti-meridian Pacific Ocean: the Mariana, Tonga, Philippine, Kuril, Kermadec, Bonin, and the Japan Trenches. Likewise, the Atlantic Ridge runs the entire north to south span of the Atlantic longitudinal rarefaction and is shallow ocean. More on this in Volume 4. The final prerequisite concept we'll introduce is one of curved reflective surfaces. Understanding this concept is vital to proper interpretation of southern latitudes on the full moon Earth projection and to deducing the large-scale structure of our realm. Curved reflective surfaces can be used to create distortions, as well as to resolve distorted images. Generally speaking, convex reflections are divergent and compress images along the axes of convexity, while concave reflections are convergent and expand images along the axes of concavity. In addition to this expanding effect, concave reflective surfaces have 2 very specific and relevant properties. 1, they reflect light inward and can focus that light, generating a source of intense heat, a locus if you will, at a particular distance from the reflecting surface. 2, they project images into the real world at a particular distance from the reflecting surface, known simply as real images. These real images are always inverted. This is not a coincidence. These concepts will be combined into a coherent model of reality in future volumes, after a full moon data analysis in Volume 3. Welcome to brilliant imperfections of a brilliant perfectionist. For years I've been perfecting this, the theory and the evidence, the heresy, the declaration of war, a formal invocation of law, the collision of time and space, the distilling of God's metaphysical essence, presented in lyrical poem, a megalith inscripted upon Septuagint scriptures and psalms, letters, myths, and testaments of extra-biblical sorts, forbidden histories deliberately lost to memory, equivalent of infinite shots of Hennessy, this human condition of ignorance fraught with mystery, where knowledge given thee is typically false empirically, illusions on the idiot boxes who deceive through the ministries of Disney and Fox and BET. A proto-tech global theocracy, a motive of profits weak. The goal of the block that seeks control of the mob is the dethroning of God, achieved through modus operandi of hokum and sophistry, a sinister plot to render critical logic centers dissonant, cognitively twisted and knocked and weakened mentally, then ultimately distant from source. Reposition your course and re-enlist in the cause of freeing men from this motley prison. St. John has lit the bombs, awaken the clock is ticking, apocalypse inbound. Break the dam and watch a flood of common sense rain down upon a posse full of insane clowns. The Anunnaki of the MK crowd on a midday prowl through the cities of great lights, massive inquisition, superstitions, and slave rights. That was old religion, new religion's the same type. This new religion is named science, capricious and paid liars, pernicious and vain, who've made unscrupulous, ludicrous claims about the lunatics that just ain't right. The moon resembles the plane, right? Beneath the continent in true position, in same size. The proof is simple, man, the truth is hidden in plain sight. That's why they hide the true image of Earth, define it as spinning and curved, deprive you of intimate knowledge of your existence and worth. Bribe your consent to coerce and lie to your children from birth. Comic book villain is personages, agendas at work. Knowledge and wisdom perverted, all of the systems inverted, morals, judicial and learning doctrines as symbols of worship. An unlimited circus tenor diversions built to preserve multi-generational products of mental subversion. The whispering serpent taught you to sin in his virtuous, mocked you and stripped you of courage, taunted you endless to turn to gluttonous, envious thirst, slothful dissensions, a scourge of drama, addicted jerks, intolerant temperance averse, they wallow in pity and hurt. Pride is the sin, is the worst. The monsters that did this deserve no longer to live on this earth. Ungodly be fallen, wicked and cursed. Toxic, rotten, despicable curds. The arbor of liberty thirst. This American expression isn't merely a suggestion, it's imperative, and there be your protection. Merriam and Webster meet Remington and Wesson. Your shield against imperial aggression. The serial oppressors use smear and misdirection to belittle you, porphyrio intestine. The cure to save your spirit from infection is this miracle injection. Here's another lesson. This theater is projection of the dimension the mirror is reflected in. It's interior and kept within the sphere of your most desperate inner fears. It is a test you as an individual are a division of God's indivisible essence, technically a prism of thought, dipped in evanescence and resurrected in physical form. For your spiritual born connected through the mind, an architecture sentient divine. A gestalt as impressive and refined, you be hard-pressed and reticent to find. God bless the unrepentant, gentle-witted blind, whoever deny the plethora of evident design exhibited by the vessels in which they reside. Let me simplify it. What's the length of time it takes a load of metal and a mind to mold together and combine with other elements decide to go electrical some wiring, let alone synthesize a genetic code intertwined double helical, which provides a perfect record of every kind, every letter and every line without the requisite designer. The cause is not coincidence in time. Ironic that a product of intelligent design is too retarded to exercise intelligence in kind. The seed of the celestial divide, discreetly and objectively sublime. The speaker of the testament is I. Heed the lecture, read the signs, reconnect and redefine your predilections, recombine them to a highly lethal weapon, aim directly at the pyramidal eye. The evidence is written in the sky. Their rhetoric's conflicted and contrived, a grifting enterprise, a twisted web of lies and mysticism, misidentified as wisdom. Get dehypnotized and listen, add to your defenses, a cast of mortal instruments to challenge your conventions. Battle horns and shatterstone of Matterhorn dimensions. Gravel falls on Babylon's descendants. The crash of all the astronomic fiction, the crack that will collapse the whole deception. Pass it forward, bask in your reflection, take the path to your ascension. The human is the rubric, the beautiful confluence of Buddha, Allah, Mithras, the Jewish, Yahweh, Krishna, Methuselah, Caligula, Kubla Khan, Anubis, Cthulhu, and Jah, crossing the Rubicon with Judas. The quintessential nexus is the pinnacle of excellence. The ventriloquist Da Vinci, pen in Genesis and Exodus. Encrypted is the message, interscribbled to the left. The mirror image of terrestrial is written in the heavens.
thing, you have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, a cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail. That means that the mass of the moon is less, far less, than is currently assumed. It's in a different state of energy, and it has far less mass. That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high under conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and a new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.